Okay, let's dive right in. We are in a completely new security world now. AI agents, they're not just tools anymore. They are autonomous systems, and they're interacting with our most sensitive data, our most critical infrastructure. So the big question is, how do we defend the enterprise when the whole threat landscape is changing this fast? That's exactly what we're going to break down in this explainer.
First up, we're going to define the core security problem with this whole agentic AI thing. Then we'll walk through the brand new 2025 OWASP framework to really get a handle on the risks. We'll zoom in on the new threats, look at how to build a defense-in-depth strategy, and then we'll wrap up with a solid playbook you can literally start using today.
All right, so the agentic security problem. The shift we're seeing here is, well, it's fundamental. This isn't just about more sophisticated code or cleverer malware. It's about a core change in how these models see and process information. And the shift, it changes absolutely everything for defenders. Understanding it is step one.
Now this quote right here, it hits the nail on the head. This is the heart of the matter. To a large language model, your carefully written system prompt and, say, a malicious instruction that's hidden inside a random PDF it's analyzing, they both look like the exact same thing, just text. The model has no built-in idea of this is an order versus this is just data. And that right there is the massive exploitable vulnerability.
This brings us to a really crucial concept, the lethal trifecta. Think of it like this. When an AI agent has access to your private data, it's also processing untrusted stuff from the outside, and it has the ability to phone home or send data out. Well, you've just created the perfect storm for a total system compromise. Our #1 goal as defenders is to break at least one link in that chain.
And you know what? This isn't some brand new type of problem. Prompt injection is really just the latest chapter in a very long story of computers getting confused between data and code. From buffer overflows in the 80s to SQL injection in the 2000s, we have seen this movie before. It's just that now it's playing out in plain English.
So now that we get the fundamental flaw, let's look at how the industry is actually classifying these new risks. To navigate this new territory, you need a map, and the best one we have is the OWASP Top 10 for large language model applications. This framework is absolutely critical for prioritizing all these emerging AI security threats.
And here it is, the brand spanking new 2025 list. You'll see some familiar faces, like prompt injection, still sitting right there at #1. But what I really want you to notice are the two new entries, LLM 07 and LLM 08. These are a direct reflection of the huge shift toward agentic systems and something called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. That's when an AI uses an external knowledge base to get answers, and it is quickly becoming standard practice in the enterprise.
So let's double-click on those two new threats, leaks and vectors. Their addition to the OWASP Top 10, well, that's a huge signal. It's telling us that the attack surface isn't just getting bigger, it's getting way more complex, way more abstract, and moving far beyond just simple prompt attacks.
System prompt leakage. This is a huge deal. Developers often put sensitive logic, sometimes even API keys and other secrets, right into the system prompt. They assume it's like a secure config file on the back end. But attackers have found clever ways to trick the model into just revealing its own instructions. It's basically like conning a guard into handing over the blueprints for the entire security system.
Now this next one is even sneakier. Vector and embedding weaknesses are basically attacks on the AI's external brain. So, in simple terms, an attacker can create a malicious document that's mathematically engineered to look super relevant to a specific question. When the AI pulls from its knowledge base, it grabs this poisoned info. It's like poisoning a library with books that look totally legitimate on the shelf, but are filled with lies that the AI will then treat as absolute fact.
And why is this such a big deal right now? Because look at this number. A staggering 53% of companies are now relying on these RAG pipelines to ground their AI systems. This means that this new LLM 08 vulnerability, it's not some theoretical, far-off risk. It is a widespread, critical concern for more than half of all enterprise AI deployments out there today.
Okay, we have definitely laid out the problems, so now let's talk solutions. Look, a single firewall just isn't going to cut it against these kinds of threats. We have to start thinking in layers, adopting a real defense in depth, zero-trust mindset for our AI agents.
This diagram just illustrates the concept perfectly. Security cannot be a single gate at the front door anymore. We have to enforce authorization checks at every single step. Who is this user? Does this agent actually have permission to touch this specific knowledge base? Is it allowed to use that specific tool? Every interaction, every time, has to be verified.
So what do these layers actually look like? Well, you've got semantic firewalls, which are kind of like an AI bouncer, using a second AI to check if a prompt looks malicious. Then you have strict sandboxing. This contains the damage if an attack gets through, seriously limiting the blast radius. Of course, there's the classic principle of least privilege, making sure an agent can only access what it absolutely needs and nothing more. And finally, the all-important human in the loop, which makes sure a person signs off on any big, irreversible actions. And make no mistake, we are not talking about theoretical threats here. We are seeing high-severity vulnerabilities out in the wild. LangGrinch in LangChain let attackers just steal secret environment variables with a single prompt. And a vulnerability in GitHub Copilot allowed for remote code execution, a nightmare scenario for millions of developers. This stuff is happening right now. All right, let's bring it all home to the most important part, the actionable playbook. Now that we understand the threats in the defensive architecture, what can you actually do about it today? Here are 4 steps based on expert recommendations for any CISO or security practitioner out there.
First, assume your prompt defenses will fail. Just assume it. Design your system with layers of security behind that first wall. Second, relentlessly hunt for that lethal trifecta in your agents: data access, untrusted input, external comms, and break that chain. Third, make human approval for critical actions a non-negotiable requirement. It's not optional. And fourth, always execute agent-generated code inside a sandbox. If it gets popped, the damage is contained.
And here's a perfect, practical example of that last point. The risky way? Taking a string of code from an LLM and just passing it directly to your server to run. The mitigated, secure way, you execute that exact same code inside a temporary, isolated sandbox that has zero access to your broader network. This one change makes a world of difference to your risk profile.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. The game has totally changed. Just reacting to breaches after they've already happened, that's not going to work anymore. The crucial question that every single security leader needs to be asking themselves is this: how fast can my organization shift to an anticipatory defense that is just as intelligent and just as autonomous as the threats we're now up against?